Steven. This is Erock. We're from Just Got Played, and we're gaming through time. So what does that mean? We are talking about our favorite games published from 1975 forward, and we're also going to tell you about the highest rated game on the BoardGameGeek website from each year. So we started back in 1975. We've been doing these in increments of 5 in each video. The links to the previous videos are down below, so go check those out. But today,
and I was only one. I was 1 year old in 1975, so you're going to have to go back and see me reviewing these games at 1 year old.
Yeah, it's impressive, but it's amazing how bald you were at 1 year old. But but today we are doing 1995 to 1999, and I am super excited about this. I haven't looked forward so much at the other lists, but this might be my favorite. This might be my favorite 5 years. There are 3 games in here, spoiler, in my top 25 of all time, including 2 that are just right up there at the top. So
yeah, this is a good set right here. I feel like this is really like the beginning of the modern age of board gaming.
Yeah, the golden age.
Right, like you can trace the roots back to some of the other games that we talked about along the way, but I think it's like hammer strike after hammer strike now.
All right, so let's start with 1995. And Erock, why don't you kick us off?
1995. For me, this was a relatively easy year. I feel like there's a game that probably should be on somebody's list, but that's not the one I'm picking. I'm picking El Grande because El Grande is fantastic. I have loved El Grande since the first time I played it. To give you a very brief overview, it is like the granddaddy of area control. So you have this set of 13 cards. The game basically lasts 9 rounds. And the cards have a number on them from 1 to 13. And they also have a number of troops on them that you get to bring from your reserves into your pool. And the lower the number is, the quicker you're going to go in the turn, but the less reserves you get. So if you play your 13, you're going to get a ton of those reserves to put into your pool to be able to put on the board, but you're also going last in everything. All right. And meanwhile, you also have this other set of cards on the side of the board. And in turn order, you get to do things to influence the map. So it's this constant back and forth between how early do I want to go? I need some more people to put in my pool so I can put them out on the board. It's a really interesting system. I guess it's more like integrated systems, really, the way these two things work together. And then, like I said, it's area control. So mostly it's a whole bunch of regions of Spain, and you put the pieces out on the board to claim that. The main rule is you can't ever go into where the king is, and one of the cards every turn will move the king. Yeah. And generally speaking, you can only go in the regions around the king. So there's a lot of strategy in that.
Yeah, you can't affect the king's region at all. So cards that affects regions, putting troops in there, moving things, moving your base or castle or whatever it's called. None of that stuff. You can't do any of that if the king is there, which is awesome because not only do you have to think about that, but you can use that as a defensive measure. Put the king in your area, and now you're going to control that area.
Already have the most troops. Yeah, absolutely. Now king's in there. Don't have to worry about that one because nobody can do anything about that. I agree. The game basically, like I said, it's 9 rounds. You play 3 rounds and score, 3 rounds and score, 3 rounds and score. It's incredibly smooth. It looks confusing the way that they have the rounds set up on the map, but once you understand what's going on, it's super simple to run through the turns. You have there's also a castillo, which is like a little tower on the side, and that's one of the places that you can put your troops into and theoretically gain an advantage. And the cool thing about that is after you score the castillo to see who gets the most points for that, then everybody plays there's like a little wheel, and you select one of the regions on the map secretly. And at the same time, everybody flips over their wheel, and then all the troops that were in the castillo, they go to the board exactly on your secret spot. And that just messes up everything. Because you think you've got like the perfect, I'm leading here by 1, I'm leading here by 1, I'm leading here by 1. And then people flip over their dials, and then they put troops in those spots. And now you're not leading in anything. So go ahead.
I love this game. This is also my pick for 1995.
Nice.
You did butcher the terminology. I mean, they're caballeros, and they go from your provinces to the court, and etc. Yes. But it's fine. It doesn't really matter because you're playing this because it's some people call it an area majority rather than area control. But I'm not. I don't fight over the semantics there, but I know somebody's going to, so I just wanted to mention it. I will still play this game. I can't think of another really game where you're trying to just get the majority in areas that I enjoy more than this game, right? And it is really it is distilled. There's not a whole lot going on here other than that. I mean, you've got the card play, right, that feeds into it, but there are a lot of other games that have a lot of other complications on top of getting the majority in some area. And this game it does it so well. And this game was ranked really highly on BoardGameGeek for a long time. And we're talking about a game that's over 25 years old now, right? So that's pretty rare. Usually games have been dropping out like flies lately. This one is still in the top 100. Now you mentioned though that there's another game that should be on somebody's list for 1995.
Because this is the year that Catan came out, and Catan took over the world. So somebody should mention Catan at some point.
Catan, if we were doing a list of historically significant games, Catan would easily be on that list.
Absolutely.
But favorite game? Not my favorite game.
Grande.
Not your favorite game. Not BoardGameGeek's favorite game, because I knew it was coming. 3-way crossover, El Grande.
Yay! We finally did it. It took us, 20 years?
but that just tells you how much of a classic El Grande is. I mean, I'm looking ahead a little bit now and thinking we might maybe have a 3-way crossover one or two more times or something. But this was the year. Well, I mean, after you let me down with Dune back in 1979, I couldn't think of another better candidate than 1995's El Grande. So there you go. 3-way crossover.
Yay. We might as well that's it. Mic drop. Let's go.
All right. Well, let's move on to 1996. And it's funny because I'm moving from that high of 1995 to what feels kind of a low for me, 1996. I don't have a lot of good games in 1996 that I have played. And in fact, the game that I'm going to say is the best game that I've played from 1996 is Kill Dr. Lucky. And that's not even my favorite Dr. Lucky game. I actually like Save Dr. Lucky better. And
I had exactly the same thought when I was looking at the games from this year. I was like, oh, okay. I like Save Dr. Lucky, actually. So,
I mean, I like Kill Dr. Lucky. And at the point in my life when I played Kill Dr. Lucky, it was also still sort of novel, right? This idea of trying to make sure that nobody else can see you when you get the chance to kill Dr. Lucky, right? So you're going around, you're collecting cards, you're trying to move Dr. Lucky and other people and position yourself. And the problem is, I think, actually, with the game is that it overstays its welcome. It's just too long of a game for what it is, which is one of the reasons I like Save Dr. Lucky better, because Save Dr. Lucky plays a lot similarly, but the board gets progressively smaller in Save Dr. Lucky, which drives it to a conclusion. So, in Kill Dr. Lucky, you're in the mansion. It's the opposite of Clue. You're trying to kill him, but you're trying to get away with it, like I said. So you got to make sure nobody can see you from any of the other spaces when you're doing it. And even on top of that, people can play failure cards. I mean, I swear, you'll be in a situation in this game where somebody is going to try to kill Dr. Lucky and nobody can see them, and somebody will play a failure card, and people are just kind of like, we thought the game was over, yeah. So it's hard for me to recommend Kill Dr. Lucky, but when I played it for the first time, I was kind of like, wow, yeah, this is cool, this is neat, this is fun, and I would play it if somebody asked me to, and we had the time, but it's not a game I would say go out and buy this, So anyway, that not the strongest year for me, 1996. Kill Dr. Lucky. How about you?
Okay, so everybody got your typing fingers ready? Because here it comes. My game for 1996 is Netrunner, which is now Android Netrunner. But they're exactly the same game. Really, the only thing that was different about them is that the 1996 version was a collectible card game. And the newest version, which I don't even think is supported anymore, is a living card game. The difference being, you know what's going to come in the packs. In a collectible card game, you don't know what's in the pack. But other than that, it's exactly the same game. This is a fantastic card game. This plays less like a card game than probably any card game I've ever played, because it's really it's not that kind of dynamic. One person is basically a hacker, and the other person is basically a corporation, along with all of its protecting its own assets. And you lay these cards out, like if you're the corporation, you lay these cards out so that it's set up like servers, and you have different rooms, And the hacker has to spend their turn and their time diving into these different rooms to try to get to where your assets are. And basically, the first person to get a set number of victories is going to win the whole thing. And it's all about how many assets can I take, or how many assets can I basically complete on my side. And this is an incredible cat and mouse game. I've had a ton of fun playing this. I think this is one of those games that it gets far better when you play with the same person or people over and over again. Now, you're going to play 2 players, so I didn't mean to make it sound like it was a 4-player game. It's not. This is a head-to-head game. But I'm saying I think this game just shines the more you play it with the same people, because there's almost a meta to how you set these up and how I'm going to run them. So it gets to be more like even more of cat and mouse, because, all right, last time she put the assets on the 3rd and the 4th one. I think she might be going every other one this time, kind of a thing, and the same thing on the corporation side. It's like, oh, I know how he runs. So I'm going to go against that. And then it's like, well, he knows I know how he runs, so I'm going to switch up my thing. Like, it's just this whole back and forth trying to get to this. I think it's a fantastic game. It still holds up. It has a huge fan base, and I believe rightly so. What do you think, Steve?
I mean, I mentioned before, I think the only CCG or LCG I've ever played is Pokemon, right? So I have not played this. True. And it's hard for me to talk about those games because it's just not my kind of game. So,
yeah, that is true.
But historically, again, this is one of those games that was super popular, right? Anytime there was sort of a online competition where people were like comparing and voting for games or whatever, this had a die-hard following that would pile on to those, competitions, making sure it was pushed to the top. So, and to be honest, a rabid fan base actually sort of turns me off from a game. So this would not be the first LCG or CCG I would pick after Pokemon to play. But it's still, it's intriguing. I like the theme.
Really, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just so different. I talked before about just love and magic. This is not like that. It's not that kind of card game. You're not like playing cards against each other. It's way more like a tower defense almost, where one person's trying to get into something and the other one's trying to keep them out. It's just so unique as far as it goes. Like I said, for sure, this is probably the least card game I've ever played. So.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, I would play it at least once.
Right. Gotta play it once.
Yeah. All right. So BoardGameGeek from 1996, the number 1 ranked game published that year, is a game I had maybe heard of but didn't really know a whole lot about. Still don't know a whole lot about, to be honest. And it is Hannibal, Rome versus Carthage.
Oh, okay. This has come across my radar once or twice. I just never actually got the game.
Yeah, so apparently Avalon Hill came up with a pretty novel card system in a game called We the People, which I think is just about voting or something. And this is another implementation of that novel card system. So if you're familiar with We the People, you like We the People, you might like Hannibal, Rome versus Carthage, but it's a card-driven game, very asymmetric, and it's got both the military and the political, right? So you've got all the different political influence things that are going on, as well as, I guess, fighting it out on a map or something. Can I drive elephants over and stomple Rome? Then, I'm in.
Right. Not to be, very technical with you, but I believe We the People was like the first edition of what's now called Washington's War, which is kind of like the same kind of not collectible card game, but the same card-driven style game as like Twilight Struggle, Labyrinth, things like that. Like, this is the whole history of that genre.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, there you go. That really explains why people like Hannibal, Rome versus Carthage.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. So I'm ready to put 1996 in my rearview window because I'm super excited again about 1997.
Yeah, I'm going to promise a crossover here. I promise.
Well, I promise that you're going to cross over with either me or BoardGameGeek. So
no, I'm saying right now you and I are going to choose the same game.
Oh, yeah? Okay. Well, I'm going to talk about For Sale.
Of course you are, because it's the best game of this year.
It's one of my favorite games of all time. I like auction games, and this really is my favorite distilled auction experience. And there are 2 versions of for sale now. So there's the traditional for sale that you could buy that is real estate, and then there's for sale Autorama that you can buy that is cars. So if you like cars, get that one, except to throw the rule book in the trash and get the rules because it comes with these advisors, and those should just be burned, and you should never play them. Just play regular for sale with the cars version. But anyway, it's played in two phases, I guess, two parts. So in the first part, I'll just talk about cars. You're going to be buying cars in an auction. So you have some money, and say there's 5 players, then there'll be 5 cars out on the table, and they have a range in value from like 1 to 30, right? And you'll decide, okay, well, I'm going to bid. You'll bid some amount, like 3, whatever it is, and then the next person can either increase the bid or they can pass. And if they pass, they take the lowest valued car on the table and they put it in their collection. If it keeps going around and it gets back to you, so say maybe the current bid is 7 and you had bid 3, now you can decide, well, am I going to bid 8 or am I going to pass? If you pass, you lose half of your bid. Different versions say whether you lose half rounded up or rounded down. Do whatever you want there. So you lose that money and you take the lowest, rated car on there. And so you're going to do that over a certain number of rounds, and then you're going to have a collection of cars. And then you're going to move into the second phase where you sell those cars that you bought. And the way that works is there'll be, again, the number of players. There'll be 5 players. There'll be 5 checks out on the table. And you will all select a car from your inventory, face down, simultaneously reveal, and then the higher checks go to the highest numbered cars, right? So even if you got stuck with that one car, there might be a round where 5 decent checks come out, and you're like, that's where I'm going to use my 1, right? Because I'm still going to get a decent check, even though that car is garbage, and man, I don't know why I love the game. I love how the auction works in the first part where, it's not just like 1, 2, 3, 4. It pays to sort of like pick a number to start at that isn't necessarily 1, and then thinking about, gosh, do I want to just get half my money back and get that value car, and then the simultaneous reveal of the checks where you're like, oh, this is the round. I'm going to get that top car. I'm going to use one of my top cars to get one of the top checks, and then you do it, but 3 other people trumped you essentially, and you're like,
I'm going to play my 26, and then it goes 27, 28, 29. You're like,
yeah, like I love those moments, and this game is so fast, and man, how many players does this go to? At least 6. 6 players.
I think 6. Yeah.
And it plays well at 6, 5, 4. I don't know if I've played it at less than 4, but
I have, and it's fine. It's still for sale. It's just more rounds with less people in them, But overall, I agree 100%. As I said right up front, this is easily my choice for this year. I absolutely love for sale. I've had it in my collection forever. The only reason I stopped playing it is because my group gets sick of me. Really. You know what I'm saying? Like, I could pull this out in any 15 or 20 minutes break that we have and play this every single time. And the only reason I don't is because after a few of these, my group goes, oh, for sale. Because, we have like 800 games and it's always something. But I tell you, I would play for sale easily anytime. It's fantastic.
So unlike a lot of people, on any given day, you can ask me what is my favorite game board game of all time. And I will just change. Just what am I feeling that day? There's a handful of games that I might say, and El Grande is one of them, and so is For Sale, and that is why I'm loving this set of 5. Right?
It's a good run. Yes.
Yeah. Now I'm going to turn it over to you for Board Game Geek's pick for 1997, though, which I thought maybe you would cross over with here, but I'm glad For Sale was your pick instead. But I do like this game, and that is Tigris and Euphrates.
Yes, I do like Tigris and Euphrates. The doctors in the house, as it were. Tigris and Euphrates. In fact, we just spoke about this on one of our videos recently, but I really like this game. To be honest, it's been a while since I played because, quite frankly, it's a little hard on the noggin a little bit. It's hard. And so just to let you know what's going on, basically, you have this map. And you're laying these little tiles down on the map. And basically, the thing that, if you've heard me talk about this ever, it trips me up every time that I am a symbol, I am not a color. Because there are, I might be the vase and somebody might be the bull. But if you're the bull, you have all 4 colors. If you're the vase, you have all 4 colors. And that's just not how games work that we play normally. So it's a little bit of a mental gymnastic just to get over that hurdle for me. But generally speaking, you play these tiles out on the board, and it's supposed to represent the growth of civilization, the cradle of civilization, as it were. It's a Kinesia game, so it's one of those where, yeah, I see the theme, but really it's just an abstract
theme
game
is
behind
irrelevant,
all
man.
that, you know. Yeah, exactly. So basically, you're building up these civilizations, and you have two kinds of conflict. You have internal conflict and you have external conflict. And this is really the hardest thing to kind of wrap your head around as you're trying to play this game, because then you got to extrapolate out from that. And what I mean is, all right, so if internal conflict is if there's a group of tiles together, you can put one of your leaders down, which would be like the red bull or the blue bull or the green bull. And these represent different phases of society. Again, not important. But the point is that internal conflicts happen when you put the same kind of leader in a civilization. So if there's already a green leader and you put your green leader there, there's going to be a fight. It's basically like two priests fighting it out to see who gets the congregation. And then the other side of that is external. And external is when you have two completely separate civilizations, groups of tiles, and they get connected, like kind of accidentally, on purpose, accidentally. And then that becomes this huge war. And the person that connected them basically gets to decide what color is going to fight the fight first. And depending on how this goes, it could easily break it up again very quickly or leave it together and keep picking pieces of other people's stuff out of it. It's just this really cool way of trying to, it's so hard to describe. I recommend if any of this sounds interesting, that you figure out a way to play it at least once. And if you play it once, you're probably going to want to play it 2 or 3 more times, because that first time you play it, you're going to be like, I don't get it until like the end. And then you're like, oh, but by then it's too late. So
I got this game because, it sounds interesting. It looks interesting. And I played it with my group some, and, it is really a burner, but we still enjoyed it. Wouldn't say it was necessarily the favorite, because I'm not sure any of us really grokked it. Like, how do you play this game? So I got the app.
Takes time.
I got the app, and I learned how to play well on the app. Where I was like, okay, now I understand. Like playing against the computer and seeing what the computer does, I guess. Or you're like, oh, okay, now I get this game. Problem is now I got this game. So who am I going to play this with? Because
now
if I play this with anybody in my gaming group, I will crush them, right?
Easily.
and so it's that's not going to be fun for them, right? So yeah, so I traded it away. I just felt like, well, I'm not going to get this to the table anymore. So I like the game, but if I ever felt a hankering to play the game again, I would just fire up the app.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Like I said, it's been a pretty long time since I've played this game, and it's basically for the same reasons, because my group's not going to want to play it again and again and again. You know what I'm saying? Especially after that first play, because that first play is going to be rough. I promise you, whether you play it on an app, whether you play it on person, if you have the best teacher in the world, that first play is going to be rough. I'm just saying. It just takes a little dedication to get to the point where you really start to understand what's going on behind all the mechanisms that makes this game really good.
Yeah. But, probably the highest rated Kinesia game on BoardGameGeek.
Yeah, probably.
Yep. All right. So let's move along to 1998. And I'm going to go to the opposite side of the spectrum from Brain Burner, because I'm going with a party game. And my party game from 1998 is Cranium.
Okay.
Cranium is actually probably better described as a mishmash of party games.
Yeah, that's right.
There's 4 different sort of categories in the game. There's the red, which is trivia, and there's and the trivia can be multiple choice or just answer a question, or it can be true false, which I'm not a super big fan of, because you got a 50% chance of getting it right, even if you don't know anything, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And then there's the yellow, which are word things, right? So that can be spelling, or spelling backwards correctly the first time without writing it down, or unscrambling some words that have been scrambled to figure out what the clue answer is, or like a hangman style thing where letters are missing and there's a clue and you guess, what it is. And those are interesting, but the part that I find is the most fun is there's the green and the blue boxes. So I think the blue is the creative cat, and that has like Pictionary and blindfolded Pictionary and sculpting with Play-Doh and things like that. And that can have what are called Club Cranium cards in it, where all the teams compete to see who could do it first. And the green ones are more like acting and charades or humming a song, getting to somebody to guess it. And those can, again, all have the club ones. And so the club part is the most fun when all the teams are interacting. A lot of party games, you just kind of just play them until you don't play them anymore. Cranium, I actually find that we do play until the game ends, because you have your piece and you move it around the board. There's some die rolling in it. It makes it sort of random how much you move. And then you get all the way to the middle, and then you just have to get one right in each category and you win the game. So I do find that we actually do just play this out until the end of the game, which is not how we do most party games.
Yeah, that's true.
But, again, it's just a mishmash of every party game you've ever seen. But, hey, sometimes that's what I want, right? So that's it for me in 1998. Cranium. What do you got?
Excellent. For 1998, I'm actually going right back to Dr. Knizia, and my choice is Samurai. I'm a surprise fan of this game almost. I don't even remember how I got this game. I don't even remember. But I really, really like it. It's very simple. It scales really well. Just very briefly. All right. Again, it's Knizia, so there's a theme here, but it doesn't really matter. But the theme is basically Japan.
It's abstract.
It's abstract, yes. The theme is basically medieval Japan. And there's three classes. There's like the people, the government, and the priest. And these are represented by these little figurines. If you have this version of the game, they're actually like resin or plastic, and they're really cool, and it really adds to the game a bit. But basically, there's the hi-hats, the government. There's the rice paddies, the people, and there's Buddhas, the priests. All right. Again, none of that matters. It's just about the pieces. And on the map of Japan, which is incredibly scalable. If you have two people, it's this big. If you have three people, you add another section. If you have four people, you add another section. So it's incredibly scalable. It works really well that way. But the point is, you have all these cities and towns and stuff on the map. And these little figures go in these places. All right. And then you have 20, I believe, tiles. All right. And the tiles are basically two kinds. Basically, there's the ones that have the hi-hats, the rice paddies, and the Buddhas on them, and they have a number value like 2, 3, or 4. And then there's also the Ronin, which are basically just soldiers. All right, and when you put these pieces on the board, you influence the town you're touching. So if I put a 4 rice paddy down on the board, I have 4 power to try to claim any rice paddy that I'm touching with that one. All right. So, and this is basic. It's almost like an auction. You know what I'm saying? Because you're putting these things down and bidding on them almost. But the point is, when one gets completely surrounded, it stops and you award them out. And whoever has the most power over that specific thing will get the piece. Right. And the game's going to go on until either one of the sets of pieces is completely gone, or you have 4 ties and nobody actually takes the piece. And at that point, then you get into some crazy Knizia scoring. By the way, Knizia has the best scoring systems in the world, in my opinion, because they're just so weird. Like in this one, it's like, who has the most things? Who has the most of the most things? All right. Know what I'm saying? Like, I have the most of 2 of the 3 things, I win. But if 2 of us have the most of one thing, or I guess let's say a 3-player game, 3 of us have the most of one thing. Well, then it's who has the most of that thing. And if there's still a tie, then the people that are tied, who has the most of their second most thing. Yeah. It's just one of those crazy Knizia things where you play this really cool game, and at the end you go, all right, now, how do we score this? Kind of a thing. But I really, really like this game. Like I said, I'm kind of a surprise fan because it's a little bit, dry, a little bit, abstract. But the strategy is really deep and cool on this. I'm a big fan.
I like the abstract sort of nature of this game. I like the presentation of this game. I like that it scales on player count by like adding extra islands of Japan in. I have not played this game. Back before you joined the Just Got Played crew, I learned this game. I wanted to play it on Tabletopia with some of the crew so that we could all play it together, get a feel for it and do a review of it. It was one of the games that I suggested. So I watched a video. I learned how to play. This is cool. And I just, I couldn't get anybody else in the crew to play it with me. And so, I knew this game. And then just this morning, I watched a video to remind me this is how this game is played, because I want to be prepared to talk about it, because it is Board Game Geek's #1 game from 1998,
Hey-o!
Samurai.
Oh, I'm having a good run here. This is excellent. That's great. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, yeah. Well, I don't think you're going to cross over in 1999, though. I think you might cross over with me, but not with Board Game Geek.
Yeah. I think I'm going to cross over.
Are we going to cross over?
No idea what the geek is, but yeah, I think you and I are going to cross over.
All right. What do you want to talk about it? Or do you want me to talk about it?
Sure, I'll bring it up. Absolutely.
All right.
1999, the game absolutely is Raw. Raw is fantastic. And I believe we're back to Dr. Canizio once again.
He ruled the 90s.
Indeed. If you've watched any of our videos over the past 6 months, we have talked about Raw in a lot of them. It has been several of ours game of the month in different months. Raw is an auction game. It is a very distilled auction game in that, all right, so basically this is another one, it's Canizia. So it's representing Egyptian civilization, which again means nothing. It's abstract. And so you basically have two different kinds of set collection going on. You have a set collection going on that clears after every round, and you have a set collection going on that stays until the end of the game. And sometimes that overlaps and powers each other. Like, for instance, you can get Nile tiles, but you need the river tiles to score them. But the river tiles go away every year. So every year you've got to get more river tiles to keep scoring, that kind of a thing. So there's all these different kind of set collections going on. The way the auctions work is fantastic. Just to throw another thing in there, part of what makes this great is the way the auctions work themselves, because you basically have these little discs that have numbers on them, and they stay face up until you use them. And basically you offer a number out. It's like 1 to 15, and 15 being the highest, right? And so, like, when an auction happens, you look down, you see a set of tiles, and you're like, do I want to bid on that? Okay. And you only get one shot at this. It only goes around the table one time. So you got to look and see, what chip am I going to use? And let's say I throw the 7 out there. If nobody beats me, that 7's going to win. And that goes in the middle where I'm taking a new auction piece for the next round. So there's a lot of times where kind of maybe the auction piece is more important than the pieces that are down there. If the 15's sitting out there, I might just bid on that with no actual tiles, just so that I know I'm going to win an auction next round. This game's fantastic. I know it's your game too, so please join in the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, just like what you were just saying, I love to, like, if I've got a 1 or a 2 or some small thing, I love to just straight up call the auction on a 14 or a 15.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Like, I'm going to throw my little number out there. I'm going to call this auction. So it's up to somebody else. Do you want to sacrifice a higher number to get that? Because I'll spend my 1 on it. No problem. And that is what I like about this game the most, that the players decide when to call the auction. It also has that push your luck element, which I think is nice, where you've got to jump out and win some auctions before too many raw tiles come out. Otherwise, you just didn't get anything, for tiles that round.
Because if the board fills up with the raw tiles, that ends the era or the epoch or whatever they want to call that. But you don't know when that's going to happen, because it's entirely dependent upon people pulling them out. And I've seen rounds where it was not long. It was not long at all. People got maybe a couple of tiles before the round was over because we just kept filling that up. And then I've seen the opposite of that too, where the round just seems to go on forever until it fills up. And then usually what happens is everybody bids themselves out so that they don't have any more bid chips. And there's one person left with a bid chip. And they just keep flipping chips,
pushing their luck,
put them on there, because until everybody's out, it keeps going. But they're the only one there. So nobody's going to beat them in any way. They just keep pulling them out. Pulling them out.
There are also negative tiles in the bag, right? And those are fun too, because you'll draw something out that's going to kill, some of your civilization pieces or some of your monuments or something, right? And some people at the table are just like, well, I don't care. I don't have any of those. So I can win this auction that has that negative effect in there because it doesn't hurt me. But then other people are like, oh, there's a flood tile out there. I need that to score my Niles. But if I take this, I'm going to lose one of my monuments. So just a lot going on. But it's all pretty seamless. Like, it's not hard to understand what you start playing.
Once this game starts, 2 rounds in, like, I don't even mean 2 epochs. I mean, like, 2 rounds around the table with people pulling a tile out. You throw an auction out every once in a while, and it makes sense. It's just that easy.
Yeah. Love this game. we're certainly crossing over 1999 Ra. However, BoardGameGeek does not agree that Ra is the best game from 1999 because there is Paths of Glory, which is a heavy war game. So the Grognards have made their appearance again.
Welcome back, Grognards.
This is from GMT. It says the playing time is listed as exactly 8 hours. So instead of having a range, it's just 8 hours. Is that just what Grognards do? Every game's 8 hours. I don't know. Exactly. This is a World War I game, which is sort of interesting because you can I guess you have to. You dig the trenches.
It's basically the whole, it's the entire World War I front. It's quite impressive. I actually own this game. Oh. I've never actually played this one, but I've watched it played a couple of times, kind of while I was playing something else. And this is, ironically enough, this is more of that card-driven game system that we were talking earlier. So this is World War I in that card-driven game system, except, like I said, it's the entire front. And yes, you dig trenches and you do the whole thing. It's all World War I. This is an all-day kind of game. That's not lying with the 8 hours. Yeah, I'd like to play.
Usually when I think of war games, I think World War II or Vietnam, maybe Civil War.
That's true. You don't really get a lot of World War I.
I don't see a lot of World War I, and I don't see a lot of trench warfare, which, actually sort of piques my interest here. I don't think I'll ever have the time to play it, unfortunately. But yeah, I may go check out a play of it, though, right? I can fast forward through a play and look at what some of the interesting things are. So, but anyway, if you're a grognard and World War I raises your eyebrows ooh, go check out Paths of Glory. All right.
As is my custom, I just want to point out that 99 was actually a really good year. It was kind of an easy choice for me because I love Raw so much. To this day, I would be happy to play Raw. It's fantastic. But I very much like Tikal. Tikal came out this year. That's a very good game. You build you're not building them. Technically, you're discovering these step pyramids, and this is one of those games that was kind of like the granddaddy of the action point system. It may be a little dated now, but I still think it's really good. Also, Chinatown, which I think is one of the purest best auction games, came out in 99. This is a really good year. Paths of Glory, Battle Cry, which is another one of the card-driven game system games that really kind of helped to elevate that. Time's Up, Roads and Boats, Boss. I got some splatter spelling coming in here. It's a good year, man.
I have to tell you that back in 97, I got so excited by For Sale and Tigris and Euphrates. I really probably should have called out an honorable mention for my favorite Uwe Rosenberg game, Bonanza, the bean trading game. Right on. I love that game, and I love the fact that you can't reorder the cards in your hand, that they're in a queue, right?
Not me. For me, I can't stand it. For the same reason, though. You know what I'm saying? I've played so many card games in my life, I cannot stand that I can't reorder the cards.
But that's what makes trading in that game so fun, because I can say to you, hey, I'll trade you a red bean for a red bean. And you're like, yeah, that's a great deal.
Right, because it gets it out of that slot.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, that's anyway.
Cool. I know a lot of people like that. But, I'm finicky. There's a lot of things that people like that I don't like. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure somebody was like, ugh, Cranium, when I chose that in 1998. Somebody who has been forced to play that one too many times at, after Thanksgiving dinner, right? But, that's okay.
It's just funny because because, you put it on your shelf and you pull it out every once in a while, and then eventually you pull it out and all that Play-Doh is just dead.
Crystallized.
And then you get to the molding, you're like, you can't mold anymore. How do you sculpt,
You just go pull plate out of your kid's closet because we have an endless supply.
Yes. Anyway, I think that rounds up this 5 years.
Right. That is from 1995 to 1999. We're basically crossing over into a new millennium in the next video.
Crossovers.
Yeah. Super crossovers. And there will be more crossover to come. I guarantee it. In our next video, which is 2000 to 2004. And again,
guarantee it.
I am excited again about that. And you'll probably see more Knizia. So,
Knizia had a really good run in this set, right?
Yeah, well, it's not over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Understood.
All right, cool. Well, I'm Steven. That is Erock. Thank you for joining us as we are gaming through time.
See you next time.